Welcome to Ravinheart Rendition Shop Time. We are talking with Hendrik Varju today. Hi, Hendrik. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Andrew?
Good. Well, I got introduced to Hendrik from Matt Vanderlis over at Matt's Basement Workshop, and this is the first time we're getting a chance to sit down and talk a little bit here. So I guess I'll let you do a little introduction for yourself, Hendrik. Hendrik, who is Hendrik Varju?
Well, that's a tough question, but I'm up in Canada, up where the Eskimos live, and I was on Matt's Basement Workshop quite a few times for a while, and I guess Matt finally got fed up with me, and we kind of moved on. So I'm up near Toronto. If anyone knows, the U.S. people know where Toronto is roughly in Ontario. I'm about an hour's drive outside of the city. So I'm out in a nice country property, and I've got my workshop here, and I do all kinds of things. I can give you a rundown of the different kinds of things I do when you want.
Yeah, sure. We actually I remember hearing quite a few of the video audio things that you and Matt did, and actually I'm happy to be talking to you. There's a whole lot of knowledge in those. If anybody out there isn't listening or is listening and hasn't had a chance to take a gander at those, they're definitely worth listening to.
Yeah, I think most woodworkers like to hear themselves speak, so no shortage of things to talk about for sure.
Well, and there's always a different way to do something, and no matter how many people you talk to, there's always a little variation on it, so it's always great to get that different input on it. So
yeah, it's amazing how different woodworkers, try different techniques and then kind of settle on one favorite for them, and then you tend to think that your method is the best one, or we tend to think that everybody thinks theirs is the best method, I think, but you have to sort of step back once in a while and look at what other people out there are doing and broaden your knowledge out a little bit, open your mind up.
Yeah, and every once in a while, even though that way may not change everything you do, adding just that one thing sometimes makes the world of difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I had a student here actually today, and he's constantly asking me questions like that, like, where did you get this knowledge, or how did you figure out that you should do this way and not that way? And it's kind of hard to explain where it came from, because it's a combination of reading, the internet, and mostly doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you sort of get new ideas when you're reading and chatting and going on online forums and all that kind of stuff, and then you really sort of come up with maybe 3 or 4 techniques that sound like they might work, and then you actually have to try them. It isn't until you have some real experience trying them where you finally realize that maybe only 1 or 2 of those techniques are going to work best for you in different circumstances,
Yes, sometimes the mistakes teach us the most.
That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I do in my business as well is antique restoration techniques, and it's amazing how often those kinds of repair techniques come into actual woodworking where you've made a mistake,
Yeah.
Or I'll be teaching somebody and they've made a mistake, and they think it's the end of the world, and I'm like, oh, I've seen this before, except I was working on this old chair, and sort of apply some of those repair techniques to the new work, and it's just as valid. So it's good to have that sort of broader knowledge, in different areas.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned a couple things. Now, you were talking about students. You have a school up there. You were talking about a refinishing business. So there's quite a few things you have your hands in up there. Why don't you give us a rundown of what you can name off here?
All right. Well, I'll give you an idea sort of how it started. But, I remember doing a show with Matt at one point as well, where we talked about the business of woodworking too,
Mm-hmm.
for the people out there who are thinking that they might want to go into that area. But yeah, I started 16 years ago as a professional after years of being a hobbyist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like most people who start a business, woodworking, you're not too excited about chemical stripping or refinishing work for sure. You're just thinking you want to build fine stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you turn down a lot of jobs that you probably should have said yes to. And it's only when you start starving to death where you say yes to some of those. And that's when you start realizing that if you can finish a project, you can probably refinish another project, you know?
Yep.
So it really started as a, sort of fine furniture sort of business, and then people start knocking on your door saying, can you refinish my dining room table? Or I've got this, and just yesterday somebody said, oh, I've got this church pew that she picked up somewhere, I don't know, a yard sale or something, and she loves this thing, but it's too long to fit where she wants to put it. Can you cut it shorter for me and rejoin it? So I also do repair work, all kinds of chair repair. Could be any kind of, it could be new furniture, or it can be a true antique that has gotten damaged, right?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so there's sort of that whole, I sort of have what I consider two different sides to my business. It's almost two businesses. Like I even have two different business cards, one for each half. The one half is building furniture, antique restoration, and furniture repair. To me, that's sort of the true hands-on, I do it, woodworking kind of thing. And then after a few years, I started writing for a Canadian woodworking magazine called Canadian Home Workshop. So that would have been about 11 years ago. And you start writing, next thing you know, people are reading your articles and they're contacting you saying, how do you do that? Can you show me how to use the router? Or can you show me how to do that joint? And suddenly a teaching business is born overnight, So I wrote for Canadian Home Workshop. I've done, I think, about 10 articles now for Fine Woodworking. I've done work for a magazine called Canadian Woodworking, and I've done some articles for Furniture and Cabinet Making magazine in England. I've got a couple articles coming out shortly this fall. And yeah, so the one kind of feeds the other. The magazine work leads to the teaching. Then I start realizing teaching one-on-one is too expensive for some people, so I also started offering seminars on Saturday mornings, which is something where it's not hands-on, it's demonstration only, because I'll have a group of maybe 10, 12 people. So the seminars were born, then suddenly someone wants me to do some seminars at a woodworking show, so now you become kind of a presenter, And I self-published a book on starting and running a woodworking business because there's a lot of interest in that. And then the DVD started as well, 2007, because, again, somebody far away emails me, says, I read this article you wrote. I've looked at your website. I'd love to take a course with you, but I can't afford to fly, across the world to come and see you and pay for hotel and airfare and the course fees, everything else. I just can't afford it. Well, local people who can't afford maybe private instruction might come to the seminars, but if they live farther away, they have no options, right?
Yeah.
So then that's when I said, well, maybe I should put some of these techniques in a DVD format, and I did that in 2007, and that was just a 2-disc 4.5-hour long production called Joiner and Planer Secrets.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I thought, well, I don't know if it's going to make any money, so I think I'll just only make it 4.5 hours long. Like for me, that's short. And then it was successful, and now I have 8 titles, and some of them are 10 to 11 hours long.
Wow, that's a lot of footage.
It's a lot of footage, yeah. And if you ask Matt, he'll tell you that he's watched probably most of them now. It's not something you can do in one sitting.
No, but the amount of the stuff to cover it well, I mean, you've got to have the footage in there, and otherwise you see a lot of them that cover something a little bit, and you're like, well, how did you get to that part though?
Yeah, I mean, my thing has always been I don't want a DVD to be like a TV show where they basically kind of say, okay, now it's already set up, and here's what it's going to do, and then you see them cutting for about 5 seconds, it goes into a fade, and suddenly they're done, and it says, perfect.
Yeah, because it always works like that in the shop.
Exactly. On TV, that's how it always goes. There's never a mistake. There's never, watch out for this, or watch out because this might blow out, or this might tear out. There's none of that. So my DVD productions are all pretty much as if you were here live with me learning, which is why they're incredibly long. But I think that's the only way to really teach the detail that you need to learn.
Yeah, and like you said, if you made it pretty much as a teaching aid, that I can see completely why it would be a longer thing. If it was something just to get somebody interested in or give them the get them to come to take classes, it'd be a little different. But it's actually a teaching aid. It's made to do the part of the teaching that you can't do being in person there. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I call it on each DVD. It says on the cover on the front, "Private Woodworking Instruction in a Box."
there you go.
It's a trademark. So basically, you're ordering me at your house, like showing up in the mail, and people literally put it on their laptop and bring it into the shop, or they've got a DVD player and a TV. And I keep telling them, make sure you're not watching when you should be watching where your table saw blade is. But people email me all the time and say, I actually have a TV in the shop and I watch what you're teaching, and then I turn it off and I do 15 minutes worth of what you just showed, and then I watch the next chapter, and they're kind of using it almost in real time as a learning aid. Because there's really too much info there to really digest one time through.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell everyone, watch the whole thing once if you can stay awake, and then after that you'll forget a lot of it. But next time you're going to do a certain kind of joint, and chapter 7 covers that, then you just pop it back in the DVD player, just watch chapter 7 and refresh your memory.
Yeah.
And then go do that, and you keep referring back to it almost like an encyclopedia or a book. You can't absorb it all at one go.
Yeah, there's quite a few different books that I have that you go through them and you do that technique a couple times, and then you go back to it a few months later and you're like, oh, what was that one setting again? And you go and you look in it, and there it is. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so the business started as, like most people want to build fine commissioned work, but then you realize that isn't always going to pay the bills, and you've got to find some pretty wealthy clients to afford that.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some jobs like that every year, but it would be nice to bring in some income with other, more routine tasks like chemical stripping and refinishing and repair, and then everything kind of mushroomed into the teaching, the writing, and DVD production, sort of as a second business.
Yeah, cool. It sounds like it would keep somebody busy. I mean, that's a lot to do.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of time management.
Mm-hmm.
I work, at least a solid 70-hour work week, 6 days a week, and you never get bored, which is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have a student who might be here. I mean, some people just book a day or two or whatever if they're local, but if they fly in, they might be here for 2 weeks. And I really enjoy teaching. I feel it really pushes my skills as well when people are constantly asking you, well, why did you do it that way? Or, how did you come up with that? But at the end of the 2 weeks, you're kind of, I'm not saying I'm kicking them out of my shop, but I am kind of glad that I'm getting back to my work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then after working on your own work for 3 or 4 weeks straight, you're kind of lonely. I mean, this is a solitary pursuit, really, woodworking for the most part, right?
Yeah, for the most part, it is.
Yeah, so you're kind of like, oh, gee, it's kind of nice that students coming tomorrow, so I can actually see somebody and say hi instead of staring in the mirror.
So when your students come, is it a preset thing, or is it something that they request a type of course? How do the courses work, the one-on-one things?
I do it different ways. Like I have a project you'll see on my website if you click on woodworking instruction.
Mm-hmm.
One of my most popular courses is a 5-day course where you build a small cherry side table with tapered legs, fluted, little chamfers, little beads on the apron. So there's a fair bit of detail, but it's still a fairly simple project, And that's a 5-day course. And some people say, well, I love the table, but I want to build a drawer with it, or I want to do mortise and tenon joinery, something a little more complex. So I can turn that into a 10-day course, no problem. The same table, but with more features, right?
Yeah.
So that's one option. Another option is, let's say somebody only lives a 3-hour drive away from me, and they say, I don't want to build that table. I want to build something different. Say, fine, why don't you book a half-day design session with me? come in, we'll design it together. We'll come up with a plan. We'll come up with a cutting list. Sometimes I'm supplying the wood. Other times, they want some rare species of wood that I don't even have, and I don't want to buy 300 board feet when they only need 60.
Yeah.
So I'll say, well, there's a couple of lumber dealers out your way. You buy the lumber, you bring it in, and whatever the offcuts are yours, right? Take them home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another option, sort of a customized project course. And then I also do something totally different. I call a customized skills-based course. So that would be a course where you're not actually building a project, but you're learning specific skills in these little components. Like sometimes a component will be half a day long, others will be 1 day or 2 day. So for example, day 1 we're learning mortise and tenon joinery. Day 2, if they want to do something more advanced, we're going to do some wedged through tenons. The next couple of days we're going to focus on hand cut dovetails, through and half blind. The next day we're going to learn table saw safety for the day. And the next day we're going to learn about using your joiner and planer and how to edge glue boards to make a tabletop or something. And on my website, on the woodworking instruction page, basically there's a list there of all these different topics that if you're a millionaire, you can you can book a 6-week course. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks straight if you want to cover every topic I offer. And very few people can afford the whole thing, but some people book just a 5-day, some come in for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and it varies. It depends on their budget, where they live, how far they have to travel, and all that stuff.
Cool.
So it's kind of nice that way. I mean, because it's one-on-one, we have total control.
Mm-hmm.
If it's if it were a group thing like in a bigger woodworking school, then maybe there's a certain curriculum and we can't really deviate that much because you have to take care of all the students,
Yeah.
different skill levels. But when it's one-on-one, I mean, anything goes, right?
Yeah.
But the biggest struggle I come up against when doing that is the large number of emails I get from people wanting to build something in a certain period of time that cannot be done.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's very common for someone to say, I just want to book a 2-day course, like Saturday and Sunday. I don't work Sunday because I already work Monday through Saturday. But, of course, everybody wants Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
And then I say, okay, that's fine, but 2 days isn't that long. What are you hoping to build? And they say, well, I was hoping we could do like just a small armoire with curly cherry door panels and 5 drawers inside. They have no, I mean, I'm talking a total beginner who's never done it.
Yeah.
They really can't understand how long this stuff takes because all they've seen is a couple of woodworking shows on TV and there's so much editing.
Well, they do that in a half hour.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you see the half-hour show and you actually think maybe that can be done in half a day or so.
Yeah.
So that's always a tough one when it's someone that has never done it before because, I tell them it's not like you just show up and I say, hit the on button on that table saw and just push this board.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to train them. Where do you stand? How do you hold the wood? Why does kickback happen? How do you prevent it?
Mm-hmm.
Every course, whether it's skills-based or whether it's project-based, you still have to start with the basics of how do you use this machine, how do you use a jointer, what do we do when the board's twisted or when it's concave down or convex down.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to go through all that even if the person's building a very tiny project. And that can, that eats up a good portion of 2 days.
Oh,
easy.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's always the struggle when someone has never done it before and they don't know how long these things take and they might have a bit of an unrealistic idea of what can be done in a couple of days or 5 days, right?
It's the same kind of struggle when someone asks me to build them something where it's like, well, it's just a day, isn't it? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the trick there is to tell them that you will help them do it, but they have to be there working with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then only the serious person will show up.
Yep.
I mean, people tell me that all the time. I teach them woodworking, and they said, as soon as the neighbors saw my garage door was up and they saw my tools, first thing they did was run over and say, can you build me a wall unit? Like, it's never just a small stool or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's always like, can you build me 18 linear feet of cabinetry? And they're like, well, how much are you thinking it might cost? And they're saying, I don't know, I thought it might be about $800.
Yeah.
I say, well, the materials is about 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you start by buying that first, and then let me know when you're ready. But I mean, yeah, for the average person that knows nothing about actual woodworking and how it happens, just doesn't know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing the requests I get for different things, and they're like, well, how long would it take? And just the wood costs more than what they think they're going to pay for something, and you're like, I can't do it for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of the stuff you see in the stores now is imported from offshore countries where the labor rate's really low.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, often I can't even buy the materials for the cost that store is charging for it. So usually when someone asks me that question, I know right away that either they don't have the budget at all, or they just, they don't see my work as artistic.
Yeah.
As I see it. Like, I see it as not just a functional piece, but also beautiful and artistic and meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if somebody doesn't see it that way, then why would they spend $10,000 on a table,
Oh,
on a
yeah.
dining room table? I mean, they'd never pay that. So, like a Sam Maloof chair.
Yeah.
Clearly, if you're selling a chair like that for $25,000 US dollars or $50,000 US dollars, clearly you're paying for the artistic, almost. It's the meaning of the piece too. It's not just, hey, it's a chair. It's not just any chair. I'm not saying it isn't worth that money, but it's obviously a certain clientele, a certain artistic importance in their mind.
Yeah. Well,
they have to value it.
that's like I built my daughter a rocking chair, and I don't think you could pay either my wife or my daughter enough money to actually buy that chair, because I made them that chair, and I put and you can see that the original design I started with, I modified the heck out of it. It's so different than what it was originally started as, and I used different woods to make it look different. I don't think you'd come up with enough money to buy that chair.
Right. And she's still okay. She's not injured or anything.
Yeah, no, it's still there. It didn't fall down or anything.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. But yeah, it takes a long time, and that's another thing I notice working with beginners sometimes, is the frustration level that they have, that they can only devote 3 or 4 hours to the craft in a week because of their job. And really, 3 or 4 hours a week is a very small amount of time to even get your head back in the game,
Yeah.
So, a lot of people sort of complain to me, oh, I've been working 3, 4 hours a week, and it's already been a year and a half, and I'm still working on my first piece. And, I have to sort of tell them, if you build one nice piece a year, you're doing well, I mean, the main thing is to actually learn along the way and do it well, like do it the best you can, and hopefully you learn from every project and keep pushing your skills further. And you gotta stop once in a while, smell the roses, and say, "Wow, look at what I did!" And isn't that amazing? And not just base it on how many have you made. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, you are creating something. It's something that a lot of people simply don't do anymore, and to be able to do that, even if it's something small or something huge, anything about it, you're making something that was a flat board sitting there, and sometimes not flat, it's twisted.
Usually twisted, depending on the price, right?
Yeah. or which lumberyard you decided to go to.
You probably had 30 nails to pull out before you could start milling it, right?
Yeah.
It's pellet wood or something. But yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know, you get philosophical when you do this kind of work. You spend a lot of hours staring at wood, a lot of hours, with the random orbit sander or the hand plane or whatever. And, you always have to kind of remember that piece of wood you're working with was, it's not just any old material like a piece of plastic or something manufactured. I mean, this is from nature, or if you're religious, you might say, well, this is from God, and whatever your beliefs are, the point is this is a beautiful, natural thing, and it's such a privilege to take that material and be able to turn it into something beautiful again, in another way.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I don't know. I think there's sort of people that look at it as kind of like I'm just building something and just grab this lumber and grab a cordless drill and some screws and let's go at it. And other people see the artistic side. When you're looking at studio furniture, you're looking at phenomenal quality. That's totally different. It's a whole other level of meaning.
Yeah, and some of the extremely artistic studio furniture, I don't know honestly if I'd want to build some of it, but some of the real off the wall, weird, as I'd put it, studio furniture that I've seen, it may not be something I want to build, but one little piece of it once in a while, just looking at it, just inspires you to, if I put one curve where I was thinking of doing this other thing on that piece, that would change everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how I can have days where maybe I accomplish something I think is special, finish a special design,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I'm presenting at a show and I think I've really conveyed some interesting information to people. You have days like that where you say, wow, I feel good, I feel confident, I feel like I know a lot. And then you have days where you open up a book from a Sam Maloof or a James Krenov or whatever,
Yeah.
and you actually feel like you know nothing. I mean, really, I've been doing it quite a long time, and you still have those inspirational moments where you say, I am nothing compared to this guy here or this woman here. Look at the work they're doing. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the joy of it, is that you'll get to the end of your life and still not have mastered it, and still have areas you haven't even started touching upon, which is why it never ends,
Yeah, it is a fun craft to be in, and like you said, there's some stuff that I do that there's people in one of the clubs that I'm in here in Wisconsin, they look at it and they're like, oh wow, I'd never make anything like that. And I turn around and look at some of their stuff and go, yours kicks my stuff's butt. Holy cow! And we're both looking at each other's that way. It's just different.
Yeah, like I find quite a division between turners and flat work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do turning, and my work is. I'm not saying there's never curves in it. There are, but it's a whole other world, I feel like, when you get into turnings and when you get into hollow vessel turning and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I've had people come here for instruction on flat work who are doing phenomenal turning.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of thinking, what are you doing here? And they're saying, well, yeah, I know I'm good at turning, but my blanks aren't that great because I still haven't mastered the jointer and the planer and the gluing technique.
Ah.
And I'm sort of looking at them the other way, like, I thought the flat work was the easy stuff, and the turning you're doing is the complex stuff. But they're saying, well, it can be, but I can take a hunk of green wood, and in an hour I can pump out a beautiful bowl or a beautiful plate, and then you might have a flat piece that takes 6 weeks to build.
Mm-hmm.
There's complex work and simpler work on both sides.
Oh yeah.
But the skill sets are so different. It's almost like, again, like you kind of wish you had several lifetimes to focus on different areas.
Yep.
Because people come into my shop sometimes and go, where's your lathe? I said, I don't do turning. They're looking at me like I've got three heads, and I have to sort of say, well, I notice your doctor doesn't do heart surgery, and your doctor doesn't do, doesn't specialize in arthritis or doesn't specialize in bones or cancer or whatever. These fields are so huge that you can't know it all. So you have people that are a little more generalist. You have people that focus just on veneering or just on turning, and they can fill their lifetime even in that one sort of corner of woodworking.
Yeah, and then there's the, I think the general hobbyist tries to be touch on a little of everything, and sometimes, like I dabble at carving a little bit, and I play with a little on the lathe, even though I'm not very good at it. But, I know the main part is, building furniture and some of the smaller projects that, I play with the other stuff. Maybe someday I'll get better at it, but I know I'm not that good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you need so many hours to put into each area of woodworking just to feel like you're half competent at it, never mind mastering that,
Yeah, and
Yeah, like right now I had a student in just for a few days building this tiny little kind of shelf that you would hang on a wall. It's made of walnut. Very, very simple. Like you'd say it's minimalist or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Not one routed edge on it. Just kind of square. And he's thrilled. Like I can see him looking at it each day as we're working on it, thinking, this is an amazing thing I've crafted.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have are some dado joints and some dowel joints, and the design itself is super simple. But, I was telling him today when he was leaving, like, when you take this home, your wife's going to just say, is that all you did? Like 3 days, that's all you built? Because it kind of looks like just an I-beam or something. And yet, he's bringing in pictures from the internet of projects he kind of wants to build, and that's his design aesthetic. Like, that's what he likes.
Oh, okay.
Very simple lines,
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking Maloof rockers. We're talking, even simpler than shaker.
Oh, wow.
Just flat, square, no routed edges, but nice proportions,
Mm-hmm.
nice wood, maybe some figured wood too. That's sort of his thing. But anyways, it's a joy to work with someone like that who appreciates it even at the simple level.
Mm-hmm.
But then I know his friends and his wife and whoever else sees this project, even though it is nice, would probably still think, that took you 3 days to build? Like, it kind of looks like you could have done that in a morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to for them to understand if they don't do it, that
Mm-hmm.
it started as some rough lumber. Like, it was twisted, it had knots, we cut around them, and it's a lot of process.
Pick the right grain for the right piece, and
yeah, exactly. Like, we're looking at where are the cathedral patterns. We want this one to point up, not down, so your eye is carried in the upward direction, and
mm-hmm.
I want the cathedrals near the front, not the back, so your eye isn't drawn to the wall, and things that, a total beginner might not even think about. They just grab a board and start cutting right away.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can put a lot of time into something simple.
Speaking of the grab a board, cut it, and throw it together, I have a few crooked shelves that I had to replace because of when I was a beginner. I did just that. And I learned the hard way. Yeah, you don't you need to think about that, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I do a seminar in my shop I call Selecting and Reading Your Stock.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 5 hours long, and I'll have a group of whatever, 8 people, 10 people, or whatever. And the whole seminar is, here's a plan for a table, and let's go into the wood pile now and decide which boards I would use to build this. I don't have time to actually build it or cut it up.
Mm-hmm.
I have other seminars where I would show how to edge glue a tabletop, how to make a table leg, and so on. But the whole seminar, the whole 5 hours is let's pull out these boards. I'll teach you how to read the grain. I'll teach you, the fact this is a flat sawn board, this is rift sawn, this is quarter sawn. How do they move, like with humidity changes?
Yeah.
What do I consider a defect, like knots, mineral stains, wormholes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, a total beginner who hasn't even built anything yet probably wouldn't be interested in that seminar. I just find it mind-numbing.
Yeah.
But for someone who's a little more intermediate or advanced, and they already kind of know how to build some things, but they're trying to get to another level of understanding of wood and how it works. That's the kind of person that would come to a seminar like that.
Yeah, that's one I wish I would have knew about a few years ago, because it would have been wonderful. I've since picked up on it and learned most of that, but at the time, boy, was I struggling then. Now,
yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you build a project and you're pretty proud of it, but then you look back at it 5 years later and you kind of want to hide it from everyone, not even show.
Yep.
You're embarrassed by it, but it's funny because it was pretty darn special when you finished it
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
As your skills get better and better, you tend to expect more out of yourself too, right?
Mhm.
And I find that a lot with like I'll build something, and then especially as you know when you're new in business and you're trying to figure out how you're going to make a living at it, right?
Mhm.
So you finish something and you say, "Oh, gee, that took 100 hours, and I thought it was going to be 60." So you basically lost your shirt on it.
Yeah.
And then you think, "Oh well, that's just my incompetence. I'm still new at this. Probably if I build the same piece next year, it'll take half the time."
Mhm.
I found over time that it never takes half the time the next time, because the next time you do it is 5 years later,
Mhm.
and you now expect more of yourself because you're more skilled. So now instead of a certain joint, you're now going to do a more complex joint.
Mhm.
Now you're going to sand it better. Now you're going to make your finish better and put more hours into it. And I think you're lucky if you get it done in the same amount of time as the last time, except it's better.
Yeah.
You know? The result's there this time.
Better product, but it took even more time sometimes.
Yeah, because before you just threw a 80 grit belt on your belt sander and you thought that was smooth. Then you fall in love with a hand plane and you realize what's possible, but you didn't even know that before.
Yeah. By the sounds of the conversation we're having here and conversations I've heard you have with Matt before, you have a pretty good mix of hand and power too.
I do, but honestly, if you added up how much time I spend using hand tools,
Mm-hmm.
it would probably be 5% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I keep saying to people, it's some of the most important work that you do on the project, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the type of person to grab a rough board and grab a scrub plane and hack away at it for 3 days, sweating my head off when I know I've got a jointer and planer over there.
That's one of my rules. If it makes me sweat, I'll use a power tool.
Yeah, well, I sweat when I'm eating, so that rules me out already. Especially if they're chicken wings. But basically, yeah, I'm a pretty big power tool user, and yet, I don't have like some people might be real hand tool, gurus. Might have, like 100 planes and hundreds of chisels. I'm not that kind of person, but I have a nice selection of small planes and number 4, number 5, number 7, block planes, shoulder planes, and so on. And I am pretty selective about when is it time for the plane or for the hand tool versus this machine can do it. There are times where I know this is as far as this machine can take me, and it's not perfect, so it's now time for the hand tool. And the hand tool may take several hours to get the job done, but I know it is the right thing to do at that point, and there's no better way.
Yeah.
But then I have times where I'm like, I'm not hand doing my rough lumber. I've got a joiner and a planer, and I can in 3 hours get done what would take me 3 days by hand. So let's go ahead and use that technology. But then when it comes time to put that beautiful little chamfer on or to make that 10-inch fit perfectly, I don't think the machine can get me there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do both, but
Cool.
definitely time-wise, the machines monopolize my time for sure.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of us out there. The bulk of the work let the apprentice machine do it, and the refining finish work is a lot of hand stuff. At least that's the way my stuff goes, and quite a few people I've talked to.
Yeah, yeah. But then I'm not afraid to hand plane something and then still finish off with a random orbit sander for the last 220 grit or something.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, well, you should be able to get that top dead perfect off the plane, and yet, if you have a cambered blade, you actually have some slight coves in that surface. And some people would look at that and say, I don't care if there's minor 1,000 coves in there, that's perfect to me. I would look at it and say, no, I can see them in reflected light, and I'm just going to hit it with this 220 grit, or I'm going to go over it with a card scraper, and I'm going to make it a little bit flatter so your eye can't see it anymore.
Yeah.
So there are limitations on both sides.
I love my card scrapers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough tool to master for such a simple tool though, like to put the burr on and everything.
Yeah, for a while there, I was just scraping the metal or scraping the wood with a piece of metal, and I finally got it down where I'm like, oh, finally it works. Thank God. There's
Uh-huh.
shavings, not dust.
Yeah. Well, I have one of my DVD courses is called Surface Preparation and Staining.
Mhm.
And so the surface preparation is all about sanding, scraping, steaming out dents, all the stuff you would do before you even start staining and finishing. And when I filmed that, I was saying to my video guy, um, I'm going to do this chapter on card scrapers and scraper planes as well, right?
Oh, okay.
And he's like, okay, well, how long is this going to be? I said, I don't know. It can't be longer than an hour total. Well, it turned into something like 4 hours of filmed footage, which I edited down to 2.5, I think it is now, on the video.
Wow.
So that's how these videos get to be 9 and 10 hours long quite easily, right? But it's like every single detail from here's how I take the blade, here's how I remove the old burr, here's why people don't burnish a card scraper correctly, like here's what you're doing wrong, and here's how to get around it, and here's a card scraper straight from the store, and I can't get a good burr on it because of this manufacturing defect. Like, that's the level of detail, but unless you're really interested, I mean, you would just fall asleep, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Crazy.
when you use a card scraper a couple times and you just can't get it, it would be wonderful to have something like that. I ended up, I took a class in Minnesota, and part of it was learning how to do it just right. And I came home and I screwed up a couple, and then I'm like, listen to what he told you, and did it again. And now every time I'm getting them, and I'm like, yay!
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's I can still remember the first table saw cut where I actually got 90 degrees, like 90 degrees across the grain and 90 degrees vertically on the edge. And sort of dancing around the room because you're so happy you finally got one perfect.
Yep.
All it is one straight cut, but your table saw has this garbage miter gauge with slop in the miter slot, and maybe you're using a cheap blade, maybe the table saw is not great either. You're not clamping the part, you're just holding on for dear life hoping that's good enough. And it's simple things like that where you finally get one right and you just feel like, wow, like you just climb the ladder one step higher and you're not going to go down anymore, you're going to stay there and move up.
Yeah.
But, sort of these times in your craft where you sort of hit a new milestone, and your friend or your spouse or whatever would just totally not understand. If you go running in the house, I finally got a perfect Morrison tenon joint. It means nothing to them.
Yeah, there's times I show my wife, look, I made this, and she's like, the first time I did a hand cut dovetail, I was just messing around with it, and and it was just two little boards that I dovetailed together, and I took them upstairs. I'm like, look it. She's like, it's a 90-degree thing. Okay. I'm like, no, look, it comes apart and it goes together, and look at the dovetails. Okay. I'm like, I'm going back downstairs.
Yeah, I sometimes call my wife and get a second opinion on a design. Like let's say I'm doing some kind of leg taper. I'm a little unsure how much of a taper I want. So maybe I do a quick mock-up on a piece of pine or whatever, and I say, come take a look at this leg. I've been debating this in my mind for the last week. I've decided maybe I should only taper it 3/8 of an inch, not 1/2 an inch, because I think it has a big impact on the final result. And what do you think? She's kind of looking at me like, whatever you want. She's not even looking, basically. She's already leaving the room before I finish the story.
That's great. Do whichever one.
Typical marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes someone that's not working in that field, they'll look at what you did and say, oh, gee, that's nice. And if I were to show them the same piece again, but with the slightly different taper and explain why, they would say, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. It looks lighter now. It looks a little lighter off the floor, and I see what you're saying, but until you actually show them the finished, both, here's the first version and the second, they can't really process it in their mind as to what you're getting at, because they're not in that area thinking in 3D and in their head,
Yeah, and there's a lot of people just can't. Some people have to go off of plans, even some woodworkers, because you just can't see the design in your head. And some people can see the design and can't do the woodworking, and some do both. But it's just funny that the difference in people's minds, the way they work, that some people can take that part and see everything around it just with one part in their hand, and the other people are like, no, I need the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, it's there's a lot that goes on in your head when you're doing this work for hours and hours.
Oh yeah.
It's almost, there's probably almost never a project I finished where I said I wouldn't change anything if I did it again. Where everything was exactly what I wanted. There's always something like, oh gee, that chamfer should have been just a 1/16 of an inch shallower. I think I overdid it. I went a little far. And if I build this again, I'm going to remember that. And you're your worst critic, right? Yourself.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you know where all the defects are. Nobody else sees them.
Yeah, just don't show anybody, because they won't see them if you don't show it to them usually.
No. Yeah, that's true. You always haunts you later when you know what's hidden behind that door.
Well, you were talking about some of the projects that you build. There's a couple questions, especially the first time that I talk to somebody. I always make sure I ask, what kind of stuff do you build for yourself?
Well, I built something for myself in November and December of last year, and it was the first piece I'd built for myself probably in 7 or 8 years.
Oh wow.
So when I started my business, 1996, you don't have enough business at the start, and you're trying to build up a little nicer, more professional-looking portfolio, not just some stuff you built as a hobbyist with screws hanging out of it. So I built quite a few pieces for myself in those first few years, but then after that, it's kind of like I can't take that much time off work unpaid to build stuff for myself. It's kind of like going to get a haircut, and the person giving you the haircut has the worst hair ever. You're looking at them thinking, can you do something about your own hair these days? Like, what's going on here? So I built a dining room table for our home about 9 years ago, and I don't have any chairs around it yet. I have some partial chairs built that are not done, but well, I have one completely done, and I have some partially done. It's taking something around 50 to 60 hours per chair.
Wow.
Okay, so times 8 chairs, you're talking maybe 400 hours or 300 and change hours. Where do I find 300 to 400 hours to take off from work?
Yeah.
Build my own.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And frankly, I work 6 days a week, so what kind of energy do you have to come in on Sunday to do more woodworking? As much as I love it, there is a limit.
Yep.
And I've got a family, I've got kids, and they want to see their dad, so you can't be doing that all the time. Yeah, so the project I built for myself last fall was a end grain tabletop, like a coffee table, with a short leg out of the legs and aprons are beech, with tapers on the insides only, and an end grain tabletop with a whole bunch of different species of wood: walnut, purple heart, beech, cherry, that kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
And I was building it for myself, but on the other hand, I knew that one of the magazines I write for was interested in it, which can kind of give me more motivation to do it, because now I'm actually getting paid to at least write the article.
Oh, yeah.
So at least, you're not getting paid for all your time, but at least there's some kind of money making or business motive there too, while making something for myself.
Sure.
So, yeah. So, but yeah, really gets harder and harder to build stuff for myself right now. Maybe when I'm retired someday.
Yeah.
And that's sort of hard for me because a lot of the people I deal with on the teaching side, they're hobbyists, right?
Yeah.
So when they're in the shop, that is their relaxing time and their fun time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I do love what I do, and don't get me wrong, but still, this is my job, this is my career, and after the 65th hour that week, you're getting a bit tired. So hard to get motivated to come in on the 7th day to do your own thing, you know.
Oh, I understand. I mentioned, and several people that listen know that I do computer work for a living, and for years I had servers in the basement. I ran, client stuff out of here. I did other things. I had, and the last thing you want when you sit down to watch TV is your wife to say, "I can't print right now." And you're like, "No, not now." I love what I do, but I don't want to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, even if I just have to do some general maintenance work outside, like repairing my shed or anything like that, that I'm kind of enjoying more in some ways because I can finally pull out a hammer and some nails and drill, and I don't need to mark it. I can just make it up as I go along, and that's totally relaxing to me compared to this is off 3 thou, Again, you can go kind of into that level too much, and it's taxing on your mind, and you need to just get away and start banging some nails in with a hammer.
Yep.
Yeah, so, some of those sort of general routine things around the house, are kind of relaxing to me compared to the fine work.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I always make sure I ask everybody is, how did you end up getting into woodworking in the first place?
Well, I guess it's a long story. I mean, I grew up. My father was a painter. He's Hungarian, so he had very little education. He's still illiterate today. I mean, he doesn't even read and write in Hungarian. And I grew up working with him a lot, even when I was probably younger than I should have been. Basically, as soon as I was old enough to be punished, I was on the job site. So I grew up working hard with my hands, painting and wallpapering and taping and, drywall and all that stuff. And then I kind of got interested in doing some woodworking in school, like in shop class, and started doing a little bit. My dad didn't have big power equipment like I have today, but he had a small table saw with no guard on it. And he had a tiny band saw. He had a few things, and we always had scrap wood around in the backyard, so I would go out there and bang some stuff together just for fun. And yeah, that's sort of where the interest developed, I guess. Then I would build things for Christmas gifts for family, and you build a few little things like that, and you see how happy people are to get it, and you just love creating, But it was my parents' dream that I should become a lawyer, which I did. And I practiced for 2 years after my articling year and said, this isn't what I'm about. I was a litigation, which, just not my style.
Wow.
And that was 1996 when I said, enough of doing what I hate. I love this craft. I do it as a hobby, and it's time to take a chance, And 16 years later, I'm still standing here and still paying the bills somehow.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah,
it's... We're glad you took the chance.
Yeah, it's a long road, and, the first few years are always tough, so.
Yeah,
But people come to me now sometimes for advice on starting a business because I've been there, and I know how hard it is. I know what's involved. I know what kinds of good and bad things will happen, so. I know what your wife's likely to say. So, yeah, but never regretted it. Never looked back and said, oh, my God, look at that wasted education. I mean, never. I still use that education all the time in the business now.
Yep.
Yeah, but really, it's all about, to me, it's all about creating. To me, it's such an amazing thing to conceive of something in your mind and then see it come to reality in your own hands, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a gratifying thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I often think about, I mean, I get pretty philosophical about stuff like this, but, I see a lot of people who have a job that they really hate.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all have our bad days and good days. I'm not expecting every day to be amazing, but if 90% of your days are bad, probably you should do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then what often happens is people say, well, I'm too old now, or it's going to be too hard. So what they do is they put their dream in their kids' hands now, right?
Yep.
They say, well, I've given up. It's too late now for me, but I want my child to follow their dreams. Well, the problem is that child grows up and then does the same thing.
Yeah.
They give up their dreams for their kids, and nobody ever attains any.
Yep.
So at some point, you have to take some risk, and if you fail, you fail, but at least you can say you gave it a shot,
Yeah.
I mean, I know these days economy is pretty tough out there, and it's easier said than done sometimes. Maybe this isn't the time to take that kind of risk, but yeah, it's important to do what's important to you as well,
Mm-hmm.
not just say, oh well, I've got to do this horrible job and just do woodworking for fun for an hour a week,
Well, I originally started doing engineering out of school, and
Okay.
I couldn't stand doing my job. I sat there going, I hate this, and I ended up
Right.
taking what was a hobby at the time, doing computer stuff,
Mm.
and did a side business and worked my way up through my own business and said, I'm not doing this engineering stuff anymore, and now I basically do programming and queries and SQL administration and a lot of other weird stuff that I never thought I'd do. and,
Right.
and now I don't hate going to work anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I understand totally.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to find a balance. Like some people maybe want to be a professional hockey player, and they're just not good enough to do that. So that's fine. But maybe they can do something in hockey that isn't a hockey player, but still be in the field.
Yeah.
Or still be surrounded by the sport you love. And what's wrong with that? If you can find some little niche
Mm-hmm.
thing, start your own business or whatever, and still be in that environment and still love being around the hockey players, but not one yourself, then I think that's something to reach for,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I guess we talked about it beforehand, but should we ask anybody out there if they have any questions, they can probably shoot them through this way, and then we'll try to do a question and answer one sometime too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime. Yeah. If people want to, I mean, I'm sure some people have heard other podcasts I've been on in the past, and maybe they wanted to ask some questions and didn't really find the right time, and yeah, if they want to email you some questions, then you can let me know, and we can tape another show. And I never have any shortage of things to say.
Not a problem. Well, if anybody out there wants to do send any questions, there's the contact page on my site, ravenheartrenditions.com, or I will put the Skype number up on the screen when I post this as well. So you can either leave a voicemail message on the Skype or shoot it via email on a contacts page. And if you want to check out Hendrik's site, it's over at passionforwood.com. It's definitely worth checking out too, and hopefully some of you can get up there and check out some of those seminars. I wish I was a little closer. I might have to I got my passport for a cruise coming up, so after we're back from the cruise, I just might have to take a trip up to Canada sometime.
Yeah, we got Lake Ontario nearby, but I don't think the cruise ship will get there.
No, well, I'm going for a friend's wedding, so we had to get passports, and I'm like, well, I've got one, so hey, I might as well go up there sometime.
Yeah. Well, anytime you're able to come up, let me know.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for your time, Hendrik.
Okay, nice talking to you, Andrew.
Thank you.